How's it going, everybody? Welcome to We Do Tech, and also to our first look at a brand new Z690 motherboard. And there's a car outside that's honking. Can't you just call somebody to open up for you? Okay, never mind. It is the Z690 Aorus Pro motherboard, and I'm really looking forward to this new platform because it does support the new 12th generation Alder Lake CPUs once they're actually out. No word really yet, but they're coming soon. And I'm really, again, looking forward to seeing how those ones perform, because from some of the leaks, they look pretty legit. But anyway, this is just going to be an unboxing of the Z690 Aorus Pro, because that's all we're allowed to do for now. And then later on, once we have a CPU, we'll actually do benchmarks of the temperatures and so on to see how this bad boy performs. Currently, pricing-wise, I'm not too sure. I expect it to be a bit more than the previous, the Pro boards. You had the Pro AX boards. You don't get the AX boards anymore. You only get the Pro boards, which I believe was retailing for around $300 or so. And this one possibly might be going around there as well, but I do believe a bit more, probably around 350, maybe even 400, depending on there's going to be stock supplies issues, supply chain issues, and then also you do get DDR5 now and PCI Express 5, so there's a ton of more features. So we're going to go over all of that a bit later. You got the board around $350-ish, I believe, but there it is. Looks nice so far. Now, underneath the board, you do get your multilingual installation guide, and then also your manual, which is actually pretty needed. Usually I just throw some of the manuals away. It's actually pretty needed for motherboards, seeing what actually works. And you probably can already see some heating on going over there. We'll talk about that. Now, for the rest of the stuff that you get, you do get your front G connector for your front I/O stuffies. You get M.2 screw, another M.2 screw, another M.2 screw. You do get, I believe this is a thermal speaker. It kind of looks like a speaker. It could be a thermal sensor. And then also your wireless and antenna. On this side, you do get an RGB extension, a cable, two SATA cables, another two SATA cables, looks like a thermal sensor, and then an additional thermal sensor, so two of those. So pretty nice stuff that's included. All right, so now moving on towards our board here. So let's quickly get it out of our anti-static bag and actually see how gorgeous this board looks. And here we have it. So you do get a nice armor all the way over towards your IO cover here, and it's actually pretty thick heat sprayer for your VRMs, so I'm expecting it to be quite good. Now we'll talk about that a bit later. I'm jumping the gun here. You do get a pretty large cover here as well, a heat sprayer for your M.2s, and just look pretty nice. Not too much going on really, probably a bit of RGB there, but nothing really else. So at the back, you don't really get anything else there, pretty standard there. Now let's quickly move on towards our CPU, because again, this is going to be the new 12th generation Alder Lake CPUs, and new platform entirely on the LGA 1700 socket. So it's going to have to be a new CPU. Unfortunately, you can't pair it up with a 11th generation or a 10th generation. 11th is the LGA 1200 socket, new CPU. Unfortunate, but from what we've seen, it does look quite promising. So I'm looking forward to actually doing some upgrades. Now, also something pretty interesting is usually some of the previous boards, if you do want to install your CPU, it usually flips downwards, but now it actually flips upwards, sorry. Now it flips downwards. So it's just the opposite way around. Kind of caught me off guard, but not anything too crazy, but yeah. Now for this board's VRMs, we talked about the heat sprayer. It does look pretty good here. It is nice and beefy, going all the way up, and solid heat sprayer there. It does look to be a 16+1+2 digital 90 amp power phase, so it's pretty up there, and it's actually quite a bit better from just the specs on its own, quite a bit better than the previous boards for the previous version. So they're doing quite a bit of upgrades there. For the previous one, it looks like those were 12 phases, whereas this one is 16 and so on. There's quite a bit more. Now we'll talk about what actual parts they're using. Some people might find it interesting. I'll throw that up in the full review. We'll talk about that. But now moving on towards our memory. So just like I mentioned before, we do have the new DDR5 memory, which is awesome, but also not that awesome also, because pricing, I think, is going to be a very, very big issue, and then also availability. Availability is going to be probably the biggest problem for this entirely new platform. Now, currently, I was able to get 2 kits, OEM kits, nothing fancy at all, and that was pretty much the only 2 kits, or there's probably some more, but that was probably one of only a few kits in the entire South Africa for DDR5. And what I heard also overseas, nobody really had. So I'm not sure how it's going to be once all of this actually launches. I'm not sure about the stock, not sure about supplies, anything. So I think it's going to be quite a bit of a problem, and pricing also going to be through the roof, because the speed is starting at 4,800 megahertz and goes all the way up to like 8,000 megahertz. Now this board doesn't support all the way up to that, but that is what we're looking at for DDR5, which is kind of a crazy double the bandwidth compared to DDR4. But as for the Pro, it does support a maximum of 128 gigs, and on it's 4 dual channel DIMM slots. Speeds wise, I'll just throw it up here. I can't remember exactly speeds because it doesn't go all the way up to 8,000 megahertz. I think it's around like 6,000 or something. So you'll be able to get that, but again, pricing is going to be quite a problem. And then also it does feature this armor design, which is increases in durability for the port, so it doesn't bend if you do install your memory modules, which does sometimes bend the board and damage it, but it kind of bends it. Now then, moving on towards our PCI Express slots, here's also where we get something new, and that is PCI Express 5 now. So everything is 5s. You do get 3 PCI Express slots, but only the top one is PCI Express 5, which gives you double the available bandwidth compared to PCI Express 4, which is we also only got on the previous generation. So getting quite a bit of an upgrade quite quickly. Now, as for the bottom 2 PCI Express slots here, unfortunately, these are only PCI Express 3, and they're also running only at a 4x speed. So they're only for like expansion cards and so on, maybe capture cards, and so they're pretty close together. So there's not going to be a lot of space if you want to add an additional GPU anyway. So those are only for expansion cards, but that's kind of enough for the average gamer. You don't really need more than that, again, for the average gamer. But for our top PCI Express slot here, it does also feature their armor design, which is kind of needed for how big and heavy the current RTX 3000 series cards are, some of them. So that does help keep the card in place. But now moving on towards our storage, here on the side you get your boring SATA ports, which we don't really care that much about anymore. But guess how many M.2 slots you actually have? Kind of looks like maybe 1, 2, 3 because of the screws, of course, but it's actually 4 there. So it's a 3 underneath the heat spreader right here, and all 4 of them are PCI Express 4. So that's also a reason why you don't get an additional PCI Express 4 PCI Express slots. There's a lot of PCI Express going on here, so you don't get one of these of PCI Express 4, both for PCI Express 3, because you get so many PCI Express 4 M.2 slots. Now, I would have liked to see that the top M.2 slot being a PCI Express 5, because I have seen on some of the other boards, actually, the top slot is usually PCI Express 5 now. Now, that's honestly not a deal breaker, because I think for the price points, that's pretty much what you're gonna go for anyway. And there's going to be super expensive once they're available. I haven't seen any hits anyway, so for the price point, I think it's fine, and you don't really need to go over like 8,000 megahertz anyway, because that's what PCI Express 4 can go towards. So that's honestly, it's fine for me. Now for the heat spreader, you do get a pretty nice thick one, and it's also dual guarded. This is something that I've seen on some of the Aorus boards, where you do actually have the top thermal heat spreader here, and then also below that you do actually get an additional one where then your M.2 actually lies in between them. So that just adds for additional thermal heat dissipation. Not sure how good that actually works, how well, but it probably makes a bit of a difference there. So that is it, mostly for all of the PCI Express things, because there's so much PCI Express going on there. But now moving on towards our I/O here on the side, you do get a very nice integrated I/O shield here, which you do have 4 USB 3.2 type A ports up here with your additional Wi-Fi 6E, I believe. Just have to check on that, but it does usually integrate with a Bluetooth 5 as well. Now then you do get 4 USB 2 ports, which pretty standard there, just for your peripherals and so on. You get a display port, because again, also this board does support Intel CPUs with integrated graphics, usually if you don't go for a KF version. And then you do get 4 USB 3.2 Gen 2 USB type A's. And then this one, I believe, I'll have to check, but I believe this type C one is a USB 3.2 Gen 2X2 port running at 20 gigabits a second, whereas the type A's is only running at 10 gigabits a second. Then next up, you do have a 2.5 gigabit Ethernet port here, and something different is that we usually see quite a bit of more audio ports, which I usually think it's kind of not necessary. Who really uses that many anyway? You have your SPDIF out port, and then you also have your mic in and line out. Perfect. That's honestly all you need. So no additional unneeded ports really. So yeah, you don't really need anything else out there. Now then, moving on towards some of the other ports around the board. So up here, you do have your 8+4 pin for your CPU power. You do have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. You do get 8 PWM fan headers, pretty much all that you really need. And then you do have your 12 volt of your 5 volt addressable RGB header, your 12 volt RGB header, your power button up here, which is nice. You do have your QLED code up here as well. I don't see the LED. Here we go. So these are the LED code indicators. So if the system doesn't want to boot properly, it'll let you know there. What if it's your CPU, your RAM, VGA, and so on. And this will just give you the code, which is usually wrong. Now you do have your standard 24 pin for your motherboard power, which is kind of a bit higher than what it usually is at. Usually it's around here, so that's a bit higher. Then you do have your USB 3.2 Gen 2, I believe, front header, and then your type C port, which is usually a 3.2 Gen 2 X2 header. Then around here, these two are for your Thunderbolt headers. So if you want to get a Thunderbolt add-on card, you can actually get that, and that'll probably connect. I haven't actually seen one of those, but it probably connects on your PCI Express slots down here somewhere. So you do have your Thunderbolts there. Next up, you do have your reset switch down here, which is pretty out of the way. I would have thought it would have been up there as well, but it's down here. And then also, usually you get like a clear CMOS button. Usually we see these on the board here at the back, but now you get your Q flash here, and then also your clear CMOS jumper heads over here. So you'll need to jump to clear your CMOS. And then here you do have a small little thermal sensor, if I remember right. Moving on towards, you do have, I can't remember what this one is for. So you do have a port here. I can't remember exactly. Not sure if it's a Thunderbolt header, but it's something over there. And then also your 12 volt and 5 volt addressable RGB headers there, and a demo LED ports there in audio, which we're not really going to use anyway. So that's pretty much it for my quick little unboxing of the Aorus Z690 Pro motherboard. Now again, just a little unboxing because that's all we're allowed to do for now. And then once CPUs are available, we'll be able to actually do full benchmarks and see all of the temperatures and so on, and see how well it supports the new systems, the new CPUs and RAM and everything, because it's quite a lot of new here. So big shout out for sending the board over for our unboxing and later on review. If you want to get it for yourself, I'll probably leave links in the description for later. It's not going to be available yet, but I'll leave it later on down there. If you guys enjoyed this review or this unboxing, please like, share, subscribe, and comment like always. If you have anything else you want me to take a look at, let me know down in the comments also, and then I will check all of you guys in the full review or just later. Thanks for watching, guys. Take you later.